everyone, welcome to Zannan Canada. Thank you for joining us for the annual holiday special where me and a couple of guests take a quick look back on the year and talk about some of our favorite media releases, anime or otherwise. And I've got two guests with me this time around. Joining me again is Dave Merrill, the mastermind behind the Anime Hell panels, the owner of the Let's Anime and Stupid Comics blogs, and one of the biggest ever advocates for Chargeman Ken. Dave, thank you so much for coming back on the show. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
And joining us for the first time on the show, I've been meaning to have this guy on for a while, but our schedules just have never quite aligned properly. It's Geoff Thew. He runs the highly popular YouTube channel Mother's Basement. Geoff, so glad to have you on the show.
I don't know if I'd say highly popular, like monolithic, godlike, of religious importance to many people, maybe. Highly popular, that just seems presumptuous.
You certainly have your devoted followers, I've seen. Actually, Geoff, since we haven't had you on the show yet, did you want to just give a kind of a quick introduction to yourself and what you do on your channel?
Okay, yeah. I'm Geoff Thew. I call myself a professional shitbag because I live in my mother's basement professionally, except I don't anymore. I moved into an apartment with my girlfriend because it turns out that YouTube is, it's a very lucrative line of work if you can actually make it work for you. And what I do on YouTube is I basically have very in-depth, analytical, artistic discussions of things that are pop culture trash. That was the original concept, and it's kind of expanded from there. But like the core idea is still like taking pop media and giving it a real critical dressing down that you would expect for like I don't know, a piece of literature or like an art film or something like that.
So let's kind of just get things rolling. Before we get to our top picks for the year, I just wanted to do a quick kind of year in review for stuff related to anime in Canada over the course of 2017. So over this year, with the rise of the Trump regime in the United States and the somewhat questionably overblown 150th anniversary celebrations for Canada as a country, a big kind of mimetic theme that we've seen throughout 2017 is the whole "meanwhile in Canada" thing, where people take sort of positive things that are happening in Canada completely out of context and make it look like we live in some kind of utopia that goes against the shitty state of the rest of the world.
No. We do. I just want to make that very clear. We do.
All right, as the American who has moved to Canada, I guess you would probably know better than I do.
Trust me on this one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are not without our problems. No place is, of course. I think this kind of attitude was probably a big influence on the viral spread of Destination Canada's Cozy Winter Canada tourism ad. That was, of course, animated by Comics Wave Films. That was the studio behind Your Name, although it should be noted that it was not directed by Makoto Shinkai. Rather, it was by Hisayuki Tabata, who was actually the character designer for the recent Ufotable Fate Stay Night TV shows and the Heaven's Feel movies that have just started coming out. That did make a pretty big splash. But one actual bright spot to living in Canada that I think has gotten surprisingly little attention, which is the way that our rollout of Amazon Prime Video happened, which was kind of a big deal last year when Amazon Prime picked up a lot of exclusives that we didn't have access to. But that has not only been addressed, because we're now getting those simulcast premieres coming out in Canada. We could actually, and this is something that a lot of people don't seem to know, is that we actually are able to access the majority of anime simulcasts without that secondary paywall that was introduced in the US, which is Anime Strike, which has definitely been one of the biggest controversies in the industry overall over this past year. And it's, I'm surprised by how few people don't seem to be aware of this, because the general perception still seems to be that because we don't have Anime Strike, we don't have access to any of those titles. And it's not true. We actually have better access, and it's actually cheaper access because our version of Prime is like $30 less expensive than it is in the US.
Well, I don't know if I'd say better access, but cheaper is definitely true. Like we're spending I think half as much year on year, like accounting for the extra paywall as the US is for anime content from Amazon. But the flip side of that is that Amazon Prime Video is a horrible, disorganized, poorly programmed, poorly optimized mess.
Don't get me wrong, Jeff. I am no advocate of Amazon Prime.
I want it to be better. Like, I legitimately want there to be, like, good competing services to keep Crunchyroll on their toes. Mm-hmm. I really want Netflix to do some kind of simulcast thing. And I really, really want Amazon to step up their game. See, the problem is that apparently Anime Strike, as, like, an app and an Amazon channel, does have, like, proper organization, at least by genre, for anime. Whereas, like, on the Amazon Prime website, the big problem for me is that anime is just this one big category that isn't even properly maintained, so all of the new seasonal stuff still hasn't been added to any of the genre search indexes, and you have to find it by searching directly for Inuyashiki or Just Because or Land of the Lustrous or Umaru-chan if you're into that. And it's just a huge pain in the ass to find anime on there. So that's the one benefit, I guess, of Amazon Anime Strike.
Not to mention in Canada, we don't always get them on the same day that they launch in the US. They just kind of stealthily show up, and nobody announces it. Like we get the Sentai stuff on. A lot of people seem to think that it's on High Dive here, and it's not. It does show up on Amazon Prime, but just kind of stealthily gets added, and nobody announces it or acknowledges it in any way. Like I mean, Sentai keeps putting out these press releases about High Dive about how they have the international rights to these titles, but they never mention where it is in Canada. And I can't help but wonder if a big reason that they do that is because they don't want Americans using VPN to access the Canadian Amazon Prime and bypass the secondary paywall, which, by the way, is totally a thing you can do. But it's an interesting situation. It's nice that we have access to the stuff, but I kind of wish they'd just acknowledge it and try and push us as a valid market, because it seems that we're the Canadian market seems very much like an afterthought in that situation, as it often does in these cases.
It's a smaller market, and I don't think they take it as seriously.
Yeah. In the end, we are getting all that simulcasted stuff. This actually gives us now access to almost every simulcasted title that's being released. And we are slowly getting the back catalog stuff. They have the Swiss Family Robinson anime on there, and they just added Robotech and subtitled Macross too, which wasn't there before.
I was super excited to see Macross and Robotech on there. Like, and they added Anne of Green Gables, I think, too.
Oh, they did? I didn't see that. Yeah. Really? No way. Does it have the dub?
I'm not sure. I just saw it was either that or another World Masterpiece Theater thing that they have. Yeah,
because that Anne of Green Gables dub for the anime, that is some rare shit. The episodes are out there. You can get them with if you're tricky with a VPN. But even the version that I think is on YouTube on some Swedish channel, it's still missing an episode or two.
Oh,
yeah.
That's the worst. It's great. The world of anime in the West is better than it's ever been for modern stuff, but tracking down old stuff and even like archiving some of the like mid 2000s things is really difficult.
Mid 2000s stuff is the worst for that.
Like I was trying to find like a good way to watch Allison and Lilia a little while ago, because that just wanted to see that, and it's nowhere. You know?
I think Sentai got that one and put it out at some point. It'll probably show up on High Dive. I think it'll show up on High Dive at some point, most likely.
I'd hope so.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah, there's so much. There's just so much stuff, you know.
Yeah. I'll tell you the World Masterpiece Theater series that I really want to see is their Little House on the Prairie, Prairie Girl Laura.
That might be what's on Amazon. I just know I was like, oh, that's a Canadian thing, and I like noted that, and then I moved on to watch the show that I was going to watch that day, which is Made in Abyss, which I'm glad we got. You know, I'm glad we didn't have to wait like half a fucking year to be able to watch that. I should ask if I'm allowed to swear.
You can say, you can say whatever whatever you want, as long as it's not some kind of alt-right slogan. So I'm gonna just pop up on Amazon and see if I can find what you're talking about here, Jeff.
I was on there. I did see the Swiss Family Robinson, and I'm like, oh,
yeah, right. Sorry.
I was just gonna pop over to Amazon too. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, it's fine. One thing that is missing on Amazon still is the Aniplex stuff. There's a lot of Amazon. There's a lot of a lot of Anime Strike exclusive Aniplex titles in the States, namely the Garden of Sinners movies, and I think Darker Than Black is actually an exclusive there. And I kind of wish that Aniplex would get their asses in gear with getting that stuff up here, because there's no reason why they could have it on the American Amazon Prime but not the Canadian one, because I'm pretty sure there are no other companies standing in between those rights and Canadian viewers. So kind of wish they get with the program on that, like, because Sentai clearly has no problem doing that. But
sorry, I just want to cut in. It was Little Women that they added.
Really?
That's what I was thinking.
I missed that. Let me add that to my
one of the many Little Women anime series that exist. It's been animated 3 or 4 times.
Oh, here it is. Yeah.
And they got all the seasons. I am not a fan of how they break everything up by season, though. It like bloats the hell out of that list. Then we get stuff like Jinter's Giant and A Better Tomorrow just like randomly mixed in with the anime.
Yeah, what's that other one that's there are a few very questionable choices in their anime category for sure. Anyway, I'm not gonna sit around looking for that.
Sorry. I just like harping on Amazon.
There's so much to say. It's there's a lot to say on the Amazon front, and I think we're going to see a lot more interesting developments with that next year. What will happen? Who knows? So in terms of conventions, it hasn't been a great year, at least on the industry front, because from what I have noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that there has been, apart from Funimation having a panel at Otakuthon in Montreal, there was basically no industry present at any of the major anime conventions this past. And I think that's an unfortunate step back. It seemed like they were starting to improve a bit in that front, and I don't know if it's because of the cons themselves or because Canada is increasingly being seen as more of a spillover market than one where you can actually go to interact with the fans and actually make an effort. But it was a bit of a troubling development.
Anime North is on the same weekend as some conventions in the States, so that takes up
SAC anime.
But there's way too many anime cons right now. I mean,
there are, but the thing is that Anime North is regularly either the second or third largest anime convention in all of North America.
It's a big show. Yeah, it's a big show.
And like, even if there are 3 or 4 other conventions going on that weekend, skipping Anime North, to me that seems insane. Like, you shouldn't be skipping a show that big. I mean, it's
Well, I will agree. I believe Anime North should be doing whatever it takes to get representatives from these companies to come to the show and to present at the show. And I've made my feelings known to the upper level management, and they're doing what they got to do. I mean, I think what we need to remember about Anime North right now is they're pretty much full. Like, they can't fit any more people into the building they're in. So
that con is usually capped now, isn't it?
It's capped, yeah. So they're kind of like they're only going to work so hard to try to make the show even more awesome. I guess. I mean,
until they can move to a new venue.
There aren't any new venues.
There's nothing bigger than that in the Toronto area?
Not really. They could go downtown, and downtown doesn't want them. Downtown...
For obvious reasons.
Well, they have a fan expo downtown, but it is, you come in, you buy some stuff, you get some autographs, and you leave. It's not a fan convention the way we're used to thinking. So I honestly
Fan
don't
Expo
know...
did start as an anime convention, though.
Well...
I know, kind of.
I don't know. I wasn't there. I've never been.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy to talk about Fan Expo. I could care less about TV stars autographs, so I don't go.
Hey, me too.
But I do think they need to do that. I think that would be of benefit both to themselves and to the fandom. Honestly, what this is all about. So they really should work harder. And I guess I'm just going to have to kick their ass and, say, hey, guys, come on, let's do this thing. Come on, let's go. Come on,
Yeah. Do it for us, Dave.
Do it for us.
Yeah.
Well, for all of us,
For all of us, yeah. Everyone listening, everyone who who wants a brighter anime future in Canada, which always
a brighter
reaching for.
Future,
yeah.
Yes.
I was just gonna say that, like, I think part of the thing is that Crunchyroll has been stepping down a bit of their industry presence at other cons across the board because they were putting together their own con.
Yeah. It's true that did happen across the board. Yeah.
I heard good things about that show.
It was a lot of fun. I was a guest there. It had pretty good attendance. The fans there were generally speaking pretty respectful and cool, chill people. There was a lot of cool stuff going on there. Obviously, I'm going to appreciate any con that places an emphasis on like anime YouTubers as guests. Because I've got a bit of a bias, but I appreciate, the ability to interact with my fans, and I think that on a per dollar basis, it's probably a better investment to bring in, somebody like Gigic or the Anime Man or myself, who like has like a big English speaking audience that they can interact with, as opposed to bringing in a voice actor or an animator from Japan. Who needs a translator and needs to have like an expensive flight and all of their accommodations taken care of and all of that.
Well, I'll tell you, this is where running a convention turns. That's why it's an art and not a science, because you have to balance. Here's a guest here who is an anime YouTuber who can fill that events room, who people really want to see, and you can also get an animator from Japan who doesn't speak English. Maybe you have to educate the audience on who this guy is and what he worked on. And you have to work a little harder at selling a Japanese, well, not every Japanese guest, obviously, but sometimes you have to work a little harder on selling a Japanese guest to your audience to say, yeah, that show you like? He did it. It's like, So, and this is all part of...
it's got to be in the panel description.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, when that main events room is filled, that's all it takes, man. And if you're filling that events room, that's all they want to see.
I'm not saying it's not good to have like anime producers and animators and voice actors as guests. I think like it's really positive because it allows the anime industry to see what a huge audience they have over here, and it allows us to have more direct interactions with them. It's just good all around. I just think like there's a lot of anime conventions that like downplay, as far as I've seen, they like really stretch to get the animator and voice actor guests because that's who they care about. That's who because the people who run these conventions are really, really dedicated anime fans who are really, They care a lot about the production side of things, and they know a lot of inside baseball about that. So to them, these guys are heroes, and they want to bring them in. But then on the flip side, to sell that to your audience, I think it's good to have like a few voices that they actually recognize from the Western side of things, and that to draw them in, and then you can sort of be like, hey, how about we bring in this guy who did a cool thing you love, and once they've got your attention, they can sort of...
Actually, what's fascinating is that I hear the exact opposite. I read tweets from people like saying, we need more animators at these anime cons and fewer YouTubers, and fewer cosplayer guests, and fewer, fan guests of honor or whatever. So it's fascinating, and so you're coming from the exact opposite direction.
I'm okay with having like YouTubers and stuff. They are very valuable guests. What bothers me is when they bring in YouTubers who have nothing to do with anime, or they're like gamer YouTubers at an anime convention. Why? Like, at least get someone on brand.
I'll tell you the secret. The secret is it's like a stew, man. You got to have a little bit of this. You got to have a little bit of that. You got a little bit of that thing over there. A little bit of this. You mix it all together in the pot. And everybody becomes friends in the pot.
Exactly.
That's how it works.
And the gaming YouTubers, like bringing one or two in if they really like anime and they want to talk about it, that's cool, It's a little awkward to see like, I don't want to throw a name out there because I am a big fan of lots of these YouTubers, but it's a little awkward to see like a video game reviewer who doesn't know much about anime at all just show up because a con has like a gaming presence and they've got like a certain budget and somebody at that con wants to meet that guy. or something like that.
Exactly,
you know?
exactly. I was at an A-Con back in the 90s, so that tells you how long ago this was. One of their guests was Frank Conniff, TV's Frank from Mystery Science Theater 3000. And nobody knew who he was. He was wandering around the whole weekend, enjoying himself, I guess, but he didn't have a lot to do because people were like, isn't that guy from that thing? Yeah, I guess it's that guy from that thing.
I think my favorite ever instance of that was that one Anime Evolution where they invited Uwe Boll as a guest. But everyone knew who he was. Yeah.
Here's you want another crazy thing? Uwe Boll has actually made something good in Vancouver recently. There's a restaurant in Vancouver now called Bauhaus.
Right. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so he's like running a high-end, like 4-star German cuisine restaurant out of downtown Vancouver. The food's great. I've been there.
I was going to ask, have you been there? Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like in there a lot of nights.
What is 4-star German cuisine like?
Very heavy. I will say that like a high-end well-cooked schnitzel is delicious.
Yes.
But it like gave me some very thick and solid schnitzel later on.
Yeah.
It was really good food. And it's cool that there is a place in Vancouver now where I can go to meet Uwe Boll, and I'm excited about that. But if it was an anime convention, I'd just be like, why? It's never done an anime thing.
That's an odd fit, yeah. That's like, a stretch.
He was just really accessible because he was filming a lot of films here at that time. I think that was the big reason.
Yeah, this is where he films, because Vancouver's got one of the cheapest filming locations in the world. Mm-hmm. A lot of cheap extras around here. My friend's dad was one of the cover zombies in House of the Dead. He would always tell us that, and we'd be like, cool, that's really cool, neat, and then none of us cared because it's House of the Dead. But that's kind of how I feel about film guests and gaming YouTube guests at convention, at like anime cons. Is it's just like, neat, you did a cool thing that you should be proud of, but this is not the place. Nobody here is.
I'll tell you, that's a real, a lot of discussions have been going on amongst people who run anime cons about mission creep, and when does your anime con start to turn into a general pop culture convention? Do you want that? Do you not want it? How do you stop it? How do you start it? It's an ongoing discussion. It's a conversation that's happening all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and that's going to get more and more convoluted as...
Well, and this is what kills me. Japanese animation is popular culture. I mean, that's what it is. Mm-hmm. That's why we started all this stupid stuff, to try to jam it in front of everybody's face and say, hey, look at this stuff. It's pretty cool. Yeah. And now that it is, it's kind of out there. It's kind of become its own... It's part of popular culture. You can't deny that. And there's a little bit of pushback from the people that were there first going, wait a minute, this used to be my special secret thing. I don't want all these strangers in, And then other people are like, no, come on in. The water's fine. This is great. The more the merrier, And when you have a show like Anime North that does, 40,000 people, that gives them a lot of, they can do a lot of fun things with 40,000, Yeah. It's all good. That's what I think.
Yeah, I do think, like, to play devil's advocate for a second, if an anime convention is like the only convention in your area, then like it can be really exciting to have somebody like Pro Jared show up there and just be like, oh cool, I get to meet Pro Jared, and that draws in people who aren't who might be interested in anime to check out the anime convention.
This is what happened at Project A-Con in Dallas. They were pretty much the only pop culture fandom thing in Dallas for about 10 years. And that's why their focus is way beyond Japanese cartoons. Very, very broad.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's a complicated discussion. All I was saying initially was just like, I appreciate it when they give AniTuber guests like equal billing with the Japanese guests, because it's good for the convention, and I think good for the con goers in general. But of course there are going to be like very vocal people who are like, no, I want more anime guests, because this is the only place that will ever have, say, Makoto Shinkai show up to premiere a film like he did at Anime Expo, or even like going more obscure, the director of FMA Brotherhood coming to promote his Kickstarter.
Yes, the Halloween show. What was it called again?
Halloween costume Seattle. I don't.
It looks fun. It's cute.
It looks fun.
Yeah.
It's just very poorly marketed.
Yeah. Just to wrap up the sort of the year-end review, I was trying to find a segue between Vancouver voice actors and what I was going to bring up next, because they used to be a very common fixture at least at Vancouver conventions, but you're seeing that less and less, and that's because there's been fewer dubs going on. But Ocean Studios, well, they put out a number of projects in the last couple of years, and we've been gradually seeing those projects get released. Mostly in 2017, it was confirmed that Kiznaiver was one of the dubs that Crunchyroll produced and sent to Vancouver. And we also finally got that dub of Gintama Season 3 was launched on Crunchyroll as well, which was a pretty interesting product overall. I kind of hope they go back and do more of that, because it's I'm still pretty impressed that they were able to pull that off at all. But there's probably it seems that there still were some other projects that have yet to be unveiled, and unfortunately I don't think we'll hear about it before the end of the year. But we'll stay tuned for that. One notable Vancouver dub that still hasn't seen the light of day is that fabled alternative dub of Dragon Ball Z Kai that is still sitting in a vault somewhere. It's worth noting, though, that Bell recently announced they're converting their channel Comedy Gold into a new youth service called WoW. And one of the lead programmers on WoW has actually been on Twitter and has expressed interest in trying to uncover the rights to that particular dub. I don't know if it'll happen, because I kind of don't know if that dub is even available right now. It is a really weird legal situation. But that might be something to keep an eye on for as well, because if that alternate dub for DBZ Kai ever sees the light of day, it's going to be on that channel.
I sure would love to see like somebody resurrect some of the Canadian dubs, like the Nelvana dub of Cardcaptor.
Well, they just announced that the new Cardcaptor series is going to have a Funimation dub, and I know a lot of people have lamented the lack of the Canadian cast, but the thing is that old Nelvana dub of Cardcaptor Sakura is so stigmatized. There's just no way they would bring the Vancouver cast back for that, even if it were a viable option.
I have not seen it, but I'm told that there is a Nelvana pilot dub of Fist of the North Star.
Oh, what?
Haven't seen it.
Sounds.
I need to see this. We need to uncover this thing, Dave.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
If you guys track it down, please send it my way, because that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I also have. The ones that do get released are all from the Ocean dubs. All seem to involve Richard Ian Cox, and those are great because I love his particularly scratchy Kagome voice. Sorry if this is like a bit off topic. I was just remembering. I'm a big fan of Ranma and Rumiko Takahashi in general. So I distinctly remember when Ranma's licensors shifted production over to Ocean for the last 4 seasons of that show.
I think it was Ocean the whole time. It's just they recasted Ranma specifically.
Okay,
yeah.
If that's what happened, that's what happened. It was really interesting because, like, you know, we go into one season, Ranma's like, oh, I'm gonna save the world. I mean, you know, I'm gonna stop this evil martial artist or whatever. My Ranma impression's not on point today, and then went to, you know, Akane, you know?
Yeah.
Puberty is what did that.
Puberty is what happened.
Yeah.
That's also the season that Ranma got bad. Sorry, I'm a rambler, in case you couldn't tell.
Worth noting also that Ranma 1/2, one of the shows in Viz's catalog that still has never been available streaming in Canada. It's still locked away in Hulu hell.
You know, I'm looking forward to seeing Maison Koku again. I want to see that streaming.
Oh yeah, I hope that was also an Ocean dub. Oh man, yeah, I got to see that. And I never saw the dub of it. I
never saw the dub. Yeah,
I've only read the comic, and it is one of my favorite Takahashi.
Hey, speaking of 2017 and dubs, so we finally got a license here for Space Battleship Yamato
Oh,
$21.99 finally, and I have yet to see the dub.
But are we gonna get a home video release on that one? Probably not.
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe not. I mean, we already did mostly, kind of, for $21.99. But Funimation should definitely put that out as a set, I think.
Yeah, here's
I'd like
hoping.
to see that, but we were not even. I mean, before a couple of months ago, or a month ago, it didn't have a license. Period. So now at least it's streaming. So people, when we tell people, "Holy Christ, you need to see this," people can actually see it now. So
God, that show had one of the most inept sort of launches in the Western markets like ever. It was astonishingly bad the way that they handled it.
Par for the course for that license for the past 25, 30 years.
Very true. And the original series is still probably going to be in purgatory for a very, very long time, if not forever. Sorry, I just had to remind you of that, Dave.
Well, I mean, I don't want to say that it's purgatory, but getting workable, like high quality prints of the original show may actually be impossible at this point. I mean, you have to talk to Tim Elder. But those were, 16 millimeter television prints from 1979.
But they do have Blu-ray releases in Japan, though.
Oh, in Japan, yeah. But the Star Blazers cut, it's a completely different cut. So you'd have to recut the entire show because they edited little snips and snaps here and there. Here's some Japanese text. We got to cut that out. Here's a dude getting shot right in the forehead. We got to cut that out. Yeah. That kind of thing.
Well, Dave, like we mentioned when I had you on for the Captain Harlock episode, it always amazed me how with the French dubs they could always find a way to take those original French dubs and sync them to the uncut video and then do proper bilingual releases like 30 years later.
That's like
unthinkable.
Was such a popular show.
Yeah.
Much more popular than Star Blazers was in the States. I'm just spitballing here, but I think it was. And no one was willing to throw the money at it. I mean, if someone was willing to throw the money at remastering Star Blazer, which fans have done, by the way. Mm-hmm. Not that I was involved in a project like that, but fans have remastered Star Blazer. But not, obviously it's not an HD quality, release quality. Anyway, we can now watch it streaming. Everyone should watch Space Battleship Yamato or Star Blazers $21.99.
That's how you have to search for it on Crunchyroll and Funimation, but it is indeed there, and you can watch it, and you should go watch it. One other point I wanted to bring up with the Ocean dubs, something this year we did see a continuing trend of old Ocean dubs kind of being erased. We've kind of already seen this happen with Escaflowne a couple of years ago. Oh, my dog has just made another cameo appearance on the show.
What's that? Timmy's down a well?
So we a couple years ago we saw Escaflowne get a new dub done in Texas. And now we're seeing something else happen with Gundam Seed. Which is really it's pretty disappointing. I know that not everyone is the biggest fan of Gundam Seed, and not everyone is definitely going to be attached to that old dub or that old cast, in the United States perhaps. But I mean, in Canada, that show was a big hit, and I think as janky as that old dub was, I think a lot of people would really like to hear the original cast brought back. And I know the technical reasons of why they're redubbing it is because the new remastered version of Gundam Seed is recut. It has to be retimed. It has new footage. There's basically no way you can use the old recording on it. But damn it, there's no reason they couldn't have sent that new redub to Vancouver. It's being done in LA. Just no reason. I think it's inexcusable. I think they're I think they are actively overlooking the Canadian fan base in doing that. I know there's no active effort to phase out these Vancouver dubs, but you have these different little instances piling up. It's kind of starting to feel that way for a lot of people, I think. So I hope we do keep seeing more projects coming out of Vancouver in the future to kind of make up for that, though. Just one other thing to point out that in terms of TV, Chi's New Address, the sequel to Chi's Sweet Home, has been airing on the French CBC Radio Canada. Still chugging along every morning at 8:12 a.m., showing still that CBC and Radio Canada are really no less viable than any other broadcasters in Canada when it comes to carrying anime, at least at this point. So if you haven't seen any of Chi, you can check it out. It's running nonstop.
At 8:12 in the morning.
8:12 in the morning, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah, you got to be quick. Those episodes are like 3 minutes long.
They're short. Yeah. So what's the lead in to that?
Oh, the lead in?
How do you what's 3 minutes long that you run before that, or 12 minutes long that you run before that?
I can't remember the name of the show. It looks like some kind of preschool CGI version of Gatchaman is what it looks like to me whenever I see it. I can't remember what the show is called, though.
Wasn't that called Infinity Force?
Oh.
No, that's actually a really good show.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I'm looking forward to, because it could go either way,
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen of it so far, it's like a lot of fan service, which is exactly what a Tatsunoko thing should be. Is just like, here's this old thing you love. Here's more of it.
Here's Tekkaman. Here's Kashar and Hurricane Palomar, and I'm not going to say that I would not watch a thing that had Kasharn in it, because I really like Kasharn. You go.
The Pajamasks, or PJ Masks, is the name of the show that comes before it. It's like 12 minutes long. So anyway, I think it's probably time to move on to our favorite bits of media for the past year, from 2017. So there's two ways we can do this. We can each give one title at a time and then go on to the next person, or we can just have each person give their picks one at a time. I think it's usually a little smoother when we do it that way, though. So Dave, why don't we have you go first? Would you like to share your choices for 2017?
All right, I will do that thing right now, and there's not any anime in it, because I'm lazy and I can't remember if Mob Psycho 100 came out this year or last year.
Last year.
Because that was, I think, my favorite Japanese cartoon, the last block of geographic time that I'm thinking, geological time. Anyway, my first favorite thing that I saw in 2017 is Kong Skull Island. I enjoyed the living heck out of that movie. I think it did everything that it set out to do, and it did it with style, and it didn't make any... it wasn't embarrassed about itself. It was confident in its outrageousness. And it had a scene where a woman shoots a giant hell monster from the depths in the earth in the skull with a flare gun, which is always a plus. Enjoyed the heck out of that movie. Sure, it's a Vietnam-era film, so you're going to get your Creedence Clearwater Revival. However, you are going to get your Iggy and the Stooges, and as God is my witness, I have never heard a needle drop of a Stooges song in a film. And I'm not talking about, Train Spotting here. Terrific film. John C. Reilly's in it. He's great in it. That's actually what sold me in the trailer, was seeing John C. Reilly. I'm like, nope, I'm there.
He's a really underrated actor.
Oh, John C. Reilly's great, yeah.
Oh, there's nothing he can't do. The guy is inhuman. He can do anything.
Yeah.
He's got I mean, we always associate him with like comedic roles, I think, just in general pop culture, but
well, not at first, because if you saw Boogie Nights, I mean, he's a humorous character in Boogie Nights, but that is not a comedy.
Yeah. I'm more leaning towards we need to talk about Kevin.
Yeah.
And
Steve Brule.
Steve Brule. Well, the role that defines him now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he was in Gangs of New York it's like
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
He was also in that Polanski movie set in a New York apartment, Savages, I think it was, or it's just a bunch of parents arguing over their kids beating each other up, and it's. I mean, there's some stuff that makes it a bit uncomfortable to say a Polanski movie's good, but it's a really good movie.
There's a lot of stuff to say about a Polanski film.
Yeah.
That's a long conversation.
But yeah, that was the first film that I saw him in that I was like, wow, this dude's got real range. Because previously I'd just seen him alongside Will Ferrell in a couple things.
Yeah. Dewey Cox, right? I mean, come on.
And Step Brothers.
Step Brothers. And I with Riley, you get the sense he really enjoys what he's doing. He puts himself into the role, and yet you never forget that it's John C. Reilly. But I think everybody in Kong Skull Island did a great job. And even Sam Jackson, who I believe if a shopping list showed up on his doorstep, he would immediately call his agent and say, I want in on that. Because there's no movie he won't be in. And yet even he was on his A game on this one. I enjoyed the whole picture. Did what it said it was going to do. Got us in and out in, under 2 hours. Didn't waste a lot of my time. Sure, it's got a little, maybe there's a sequel coming up. Maybe there's not. It's okay. It's all right if there aren't any more of these. We're all good.
Are they going to tie it into the Godzilla movies that are coming out?
They tie it right into the Godzilla movies, but that's okay. They're not
building a Universal Monsters cinematic universe.
I think they canceled that.
Yeah. This is how Universal should have done it. which is
but like I believe that their original plan might have been to fuse this with what they were doing with the Mummy and Wolfman and stuff like that.
Right, they called it like the Dark Universe, and went as far as to actually have the Universal logo like rewind and then launch again, saying with the text "The Dark Universe." I never saw that movie. But,
yeah, no one saw those movies.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that like a kaiju cinematic universe is cool. Shame they can't bring Pacific Rim into that, but what are you gonna do, right?
I'm okay with that. I was really underwhelmed by Pacific Rim. I'm the one guy. You can go ahead and shoot me now.
I'm the other guy. I was never big on Pacific Rim.
It's all right.
Sorry, go ahead.
First off, we have a perfectly good word. It's called giant monster. I'm not a Japanese person. Actually, that's what kind of bugs me about watching the new Mystery Science Theater is they keep saying kaiju, like you're watching Yongari, and they keep saying kaiju. And it's like, guys, you're weebing me out here, and it's driving me insane. Just say giant monster. It's okay. Giant monster. It's all right. It's giant monster. It's okay.
I feel like kaiju is like a helpful sort of shorthand, though, because it describes like a specific kind of giant monster, and I feel like it almost confuses things to bring King Kong into that, because Kong isn't really what I think of when I think of a kaiju type monster.
Hey man, he was fighting Godzilla before we was born.
Yeah,
he was there, right? He was there first, right? That's what I'm talking about. He was there first.
I mean, he was no doubt an influence on Godzilla.
Godzilla was like, oh, maybe we can do this too. King Kong is he's where it's at. And what I kind of like about Skull Island is it reminds me a lot of one of my favorite, kaiju movie, which is King Kong Escapes, which is a terrific. And it has a robot King Kong in it, which I hope we'll see in the next. And Doctor Who, I want Doctor Who to show up.
That would be neat.
That's my wish list.
What I really want to see, I want to see like the Flash from the DC extended universe. I want to see the Flash like accidentally phase into the Potterverse that Warner Brothers is like simultaneously building. I think that would be great because he's already a dimension hopper. It would be real neat to just see him run through the Lego cinematic universe that they also own. It's just funny to me that like Warner Brothers is trying so hard to sail this DCEU ship. And meanwhile, they've got like one semi-successful thing in Harry Potter and one immensely successful thing in Lego that they're not properly leveraging at all.
It is really strange. Well, I mean, I don't know that they have any more room to stash the giant piles of $1,000 bills that Harry Potter made them. So I'm not too worried. Like, they could keep making turkeys. They could keep throwing money at Zack Snyder to make terrible movies till the end of time. Until Zack Snyder shows up with a pistol and makes me see those movies, I don't care. They can make 50 of those movies.
I kind of appreciate that they're not. Okay. Yeah, I kind of appreciate that they're not exploiting the Lego stuff too much because I mean they put really good stuff out under that banner, and I feel like if they tried to push it too hard, it would probably go off the rails pretty quickly.
They've got a lot, they have like a Ninja Go TV show or something, don't they? I mean, they've got a lot of Lego sort of secondary animation stuff. I'm not too clued in on what Lego is up to these days, but I know that maybe they don't want to dilute their brand in terms of, hey kids, buy these toys,
Well, I mean, they kind of have two different Lego Batmans now, because there's like the made-for-TV Lego Batman, and then there's the Lego movie Lego Batman, and they're like kind of related, but kind of not. It gets confusing. Not that literally anybody cares about consistency in that universe. As long as
I really hope they don't. I really hope that as this is Batman. There was a Zebra Batman and a Negative Batman and Ace the Bat-Hound and Batmite and Batman Dies at Dawn and the Batman from Planet X. And did I already say the Rainbow Batman? I said the Rainbow Man.
We were all thinking the Rainbow Batman, so it's okay. So, Dave, you want to move on to your second pick?
Yeah. So, speaking of Vancouver, my second pick for 2017 media is the television show Riverdale, which, as an Archie Comics guy, I am enjoying the heck out of. because
we're gonna have to fight. I am an Archie comics guy, and I put out like I think like a 25-minute video about why I hate Riverdale and everything it stands for.
Wow.
So I don't want to tell me why you like it, and then I will.
Okay. Well, first off, I like that Jughead's dad can be sitting in a jail cell reading an issue of Chilling Adventures in Sorcery starring Sabrina, which is a deep cut. Secondly, I like that Cricket Odell is a student at Riverdale High, even though I don't believe she's had a speaking role yet. Throwing Cricket Odell in there is like, that's a deep cut right there. That is a series. I almost quit watching the show, and I don't know, like, you're not watching the show, but there's a point at which the Black Hood, which is another deep cut Archie thing, shoots Moose and Midge, or shoots Moose and Midge. It's complicated. And I'm like, if Moose and Midge are dead, I am done with it. And they didn't do it. So I'm like, okay, all right, you got me, all right. I like Big Ethel in it. I think Veronica is like, because everybody's like, who do you like, Betty or Veronica? I was always a Betty kind of guy, but the Veronica on the TV show is nailing the look. Like, whoever's doing her costuming has worked really hard to kind of get this 1965, 1967 kind of mod put together sweet spot of Victoria fashion, Veronica fashions, and I'm really enjoying that. Betty at least is working on a car this season, so that's a plus in my book. That's
an improvement over last season.
It's an improvement over last season. Yeah. She's actually figuring stuff out this time, and I kind of like that. Jughead is Cole Sprouse is nailing Jughead so hard. He's doing a tremendous job as Jughead. Don't like seeing his eyeballs. Shouldn't be seeing his eyeballs. Took them a long time to get him eating a hamburger.
They've gotten him in pops. So I sort of dropped off the show towards the middle of the first season because I was not enjoying it. And I feel like they are undercutting a lot of the stuff that makes me love these characters. For starters, like, the fact that Jughead is interested in a woman, period, is just kind of completely out of character for him. Just across all interpretations, he's been that guy like, ooh, girls, give me a hamburger.
He likes girls if their father is a butcher or runs a pizza parlor or, or
has a video game arcade.
In some way food related, or But yeah, no, I can understand that.
And there's other things like Archie Andrews over the course of the first few episodes, he's like not honest. He's just straight up not a good guy.
I will tell you, the weak link in the show is Archie. Archie is they're not really sure what to do with him, and I feel like at some point he is going to go into Veronica's house and break a vase, and when that happens, I'll know that they've got Archie. But so far,
they actually understand his. He's not clumsy.
He's not clumsy.
He's not clumsy. He's like kind of a liar and just kind of a not great person.
He's trying to do the right thing, and he's really bad at it, which is an Archie kind of thing. But this is the darkness on the show has been dialed down. It's much, much, much darker than I would like. It is a really dark show. So I'm not super happy about that. But I will say I'm not crazy about Coach Weatherby. He's not funny. He needs to be funny. Like, he's a really harsh guy, and they need to give him at least one moment where he can be funny. Just let him be funny one.
I also was not a fan of what they did with Miss Grundy as a character.
See, I thought that was a pretty good twist. I kind of like that.
I don't know. I watched the show after. Have you read the new update of Riverdale, or of like the Riverdale universe with the new Archie, the new Jughead, the new Betty and Monica comics?
Nope.
So basically, there is a modernized update of Archie running in comics right now that is like it's topical, it's social media relevant, it's everything that Riverdale tries to be, except that it's not also a shitty melodramatic Twin Peaks knockoff. And So I do not mean to, dump on it, because it can definitely be like an enjoyable show if you're in the mood for like a melodrama with Archie characters and some deep cuts to the lore. Because I will admit, they do hit some of the deep lore.
There's a lot of deep cuts. You know who showed it? Well, okay, he didn't show up, but they name dropped Wilbur Wilkins.
That's
recently.
crazy.
Yeah.
But so like in this comic universe that they've got running now, they've got all of these deep cuts. They've got a modernized take, but they all feel like the characters. Like one of the first interactions that Archie has with Veronica in the comic is her dad is building a new mansion on the edge of Riverdale. Archie goes there for a day as a part-time job to help them build it and ends up destroying the entire construction site. That's in character Archie. And the whole, like, their whole modernization and like adding a plot to it is Archie used to be dating Betty. They had a falling out and they're trying to figure out how to still be friends. And now he's in love with Veronica, who's kind of manipulative and bad for him, but also he likes her. So it's like a different take on that relationship dynamic that still leaves it open for a love triangle without resorting to the same, like, oh man, silly me, Jughead, I scheduled a date with Betty and Veronica on the same day. What am I gonna do? I better pretend to be a waiter and just like sneak between two different restaurants.
No, that's juvenile stuff. Motor scooter between the two dates.
Yeah, exactly. Or God,
skateboard.
so many...
You can do a skateboard, yeah. Well, see, the trick about Archie comics is that every 7 years you have an entirely new crop of kids reading Archie comics. So you can do the same stories over and over because it's okay. This is how comic books should. I mean, in my opinion, this is how comic books were when they were popular culture, because you had a new set of readers coming in. You'd start reading them around 7, 8. You'd get done with them when you were about 13. And a new crop of kids is going to come in over and over and over again. This is back when comics regularly sold 1 million copies a month, back when they were stupid. And of course, comic books now are not stupid. They're very smart and intelligent for grown-ups, and that's why they sell terribly.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they sell well enough to sustain themselves.
Well, Archie comics actually sell really well. And it's a privately held company that does not care what Diamond. So we're never going to get good numbers out of Archie. They play things really close to the vest.
I will say that the reboot is like selling well and getting good critical reception.
Well,
from
let me tell you,
fans.
Archie comics, man, they introduced Kevin Keller, and that got them a lot of media. They got Archie married to both Betty and Veronica. That got them a lot of media. They introduced, let's turn Archie into a zombie. Man, that got them a lot of media.
Afterlife with Archie is one of the greatest horror comics ever.
People will not stop talking about that. And that's because Archie Comics knows they need to keep themselves in the public eye selling comic books. And the TV show, it's a great TV show. They're not worried about that. They're going to keep publishing comic books, which is what they've been doing since 1940 or whatever.
Yeah, I guess I can't complain because Archie still exists in a format that I can enjoy.
Archie can contain multitudes.
I just really can't enjoy Riverdale, and I don't know. I have the same problem with Riverdale and its sort of edification of the Archie characters as I do with the DCU. Just because they put out a movie where Batman is going around killing people with guns. And that kind of undermines two pillars of what Batman is. But now that's what Batman is in the public consciousness. For any kid who's never seen the original Batman movies or Dark Knight movies before, comes into this, sees Batman killing people with guns, and he's like, oh, Batman's, a guy with tanks who's mean and kills people with guns. And, if somebody's watching River... what I think is somebody watches Riverdale because TV is always going to do better than comics. It's just an easier medium to consume. Web comics notwithstanding, it's also easier to just access. And there are going to be kids who think that Archie Andrews is a selfish redheaded fuckboy who just
Well, here's the difference between Batman and Archie. Children have actually read Archie comics. And I will put money down that every child or tween or however old enough, because I wouldn't let kids watch Riverdale, but every tween that watches Riverdale, and parents of tweens watching Riverdale, don't let your tweens watch Riverdale. It's too mature for them. Anyway, they've all read Archie comics. Not a lot of those kids who've seen, and I hope no kids are seeing these DCU Batman films. Those kids they couldn't find a Batman comic if you gave them $10 they'd go buy me a Batman comic. They don't know where to get them.
Yep, that is very true.
Kids read Archie comics. Kids do not read Batman comics because Daddy buys a Batman comic, puts it in a double bag, puts it in a box, and forgets about it.
Archie comics you can find at grocery stores.
You can find them at grocery stores.
Only comic you can find at a grocery store now.
So I feel like the kids, and I use the term loosely, the kids that are watching Riverdale, they're fully aware that this is a version of these characters that is not universal and does not change that Betty and Veronica digest they bought. They yelled at Mom to buy them before they went on the long car trip.
No. So obviously I have very little to say about Riverdale or Archie in general because I didn't chime in at any point during that.
Were you not outraged when KJ Appa, the guy playing Archie, said Vancouver was boring?
Oh yeah, I was outraged.
Like, come on!
I'm very angry about that.
He acknowledged that the food here was good, and like that's the most important thing to me. Overall.
Well, you know who's boring? He's boring.
He really is.
Josie is running him off his own show, man. Yeah. And that's another problem. Is they have Josie and the Pussycats on there, which is good, right? Josie's doing a good job. Valerie is kind of there. Melody needs to be a woman that is so distractingly attractive that men drive their cars off of the street when she walks down the street. Mm-hmm. And this Melody is not that attractive. That's what I'm saying. Melody needs to be a Dan DeCarlo attractive woman. And this Melody is not. I'm sorry, full props to you, TV Melody, but you're not that hot.
I mean, that's
a terrible thing to say.
I had one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, I'm just gonna throw out one more point in like opposition to Riverdale, which is just in the first like episode. Like, I hate a lot of Veronica's dialogue, but I'm just gonna throw out one line from Riverdale to let people decide for themselves. This is something that Veronica says when somebody is talking about the dichotomy between playing music and doing football, which is like a Disney Channel original plot. Veronica says, "Can't we, in this post-James Franco era, liberate ourselves from the tired jock-artist dichotomy?" It's like, thanks, Riverdale. We did that back in 2005. Sorry, I just... That one line still bugs me to this day.
Are we really post James Franco?
Yeah, I don't.
We're
think
in the middle of a James. We're in the middle of a James Franco, in addition to everything else. But yeah,
that was a pretty. Yeah. Looking forward to that. That may be on my list.
I had one question I wanted to throw out there before we move on to Dave's third item. The current Archie comic that's running, how would you compare that to Mark Russell's Flintstones comic? Because I loved that and it got canceled, and I'm still kind of writhing over it.
I haven't read that comic.
Oh, you gotta! It's so good. It's so good.
Is it like a modernization?
Sort of. You know what? I do a full explanation of what it is and why it's so great in last year's Christmas special. You can go in and listen to it there. It is one of the greatest satirical works to come out of the United States in a number of years, I would say. I think it was the best for last year for sure. But anyway, we can talk about that later. Dave, can we get to your third item?
Sure. So you brought up Twin Peaks earlier, right? As this show is kind of a bargain basement Twin Peaks. There's both Twin Peaks and Riverdale share an actress, Madgen Amick, plays Mrs. Cooper, and she was also on Twin Peaks. Well, my third piece of 2017 media is Twin Peaks: The Return.
Hey, that was one of mine too.
I was not expecting. I had my eyebrows raised, and I was perfectly willing to say, "Well, this is not any good." And it just totally devastated. It was amazing. Mm-hmm. I loved. I unabashedly loved it. I was confused by it. I was frustrated by it. I was angered by it. Confused again by it. Loved it. Loved every bit of it.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing about Twin Peaks is that the original show was remembered for how it defied television convention.
Well,
back in 1990 1991.
This is the interesting thing about Twin Peaks and Riverdale, for that matter, is people kind of remembered Twin Peaks as being this cutesy, funny. Let's have some pie and coffee. Look at the Douglas firs.
Yeah.
Quirky, quirky fake soap opera kind of thing. And I think that's what it turned into in the second season, which is why I quit watching the second season. And that's why when
the
people
problem
went
with
to
the
go
second
see...
season was because
Yes.
Lynch and Frost,
Yes.
they were spread between too many projects, and
Yes.
there were just so many difficulties going on.
And when the film Fire Walk With Me came out, that is why people hated that movie, because suddenly this was what Lynch was trying to do all along.
Yeah.
And they didn't want any part of it. They ran screaming for it.
Yeah,
and
that
I, was like everybody else. I figured we would never, ever, ever, ever get any Twin Peaks.
Yeah, Fire Walk With Me was, the movie certainly has its problems, but it was totally misinterpreted and misunderstood when it came out, I felt. It recontextualized things in the show that, in some ways weren't, really, fully realizing the whole idea behind Twin Peaks in the best way. But I think that it definitely, any faults that may have been present with that movie are fully rectified in this new series, which is, again, it's challenging and frustrating in all the right ways. And I think that anybody who's been truly, and I guess I can't speak for everyone, I'm speaking more for myself, but anybody who's been anticipating like a new season of Twin Peaks, I really don't think that anybody who's held the torch for that long would have been sitting there truly expecting anything conventional, especially when Showtime was actually crazy enough to pay David Lynch to direct every single episode of the new series, which...
I'm really hoping they were not hoping for cutesy pie jokes.
I certainly hope not. I feel bad for anybody who still who was expecting that. I mean,
I know some people were disappointed with the show. People were kind of I saw some complaints about the pace and what is happening here. I'm confused, that sort of thing. And you just have to roll with it. You just have to sit down and let David Lynch call the shots.
Exactly.
That's really how it is with every David Lynch production. Is you just have to let the master work.
I think I'm one of the three people that saw Inland Empire in a theater, and I just enjoyed that. I mean, I don't know why I enjoyed it. It works on a level that is below or above normal film levels, but it works, and this is what I'm talking about. It works.
Yeah, and I think if you've only seen the original Twin Peaks, it's definitely advisable to go and watch at least one other Lynch film before jumping into the third season, because it can it prepares you for things like the really oddly drawn out scenes or characters that are kind of haphazardly introduced and then sort of disappear. That's I think one of the more controversial aspects of the way Lynch handles things. There's what's the term I'm thinking of? A real stream of consciousness kind of approach.
It's a dream. There's a dream logic. There's a dream logic that is you see people try to capture in fictional media, a lot, and most people fail. And he is tapped into whatever it is in his brain that allows him to drop this stuff down. He's got a natural feel for it.
Yeah. And it plays on expectations so well. And not always in a way that I think is trying to disappoint anyone who was expecting, coffee and cherry pie and whatnot. You have so many subplots going on in the show. Very few of them get any kind of what you call a satisfying conventional resolution. Especially in... not to spoil anything, but especially in the case of one particularly beloved character whose arc comes up late and then cuts off right in the middle of a huge development. But it's
just leave the house. Just put your coat on and leave the house.
And it just completely stops, and it's hard not to be completely frustrated by that, and or even infuriated by that it's just not brought up in the final couple of episodes. But what's brilliant is that
it's a feature, not a bug. Is what
yeah,
I'm trying to say.
It forces you to go back and reevaluate everything that had happened with that character and the subtle ways that it ties in with the with other characters and thematic developments in the show. And you see there's a lot of very strange things that are subtly going on in the background that you will not notice on a passive viewing. And I have to say, I'm really impressed by the analysis that has gone on with this show. It's almost kind of inspiring that the fan base has been able to delve so deeply and uncover so many things. Like there's all the strange things going on in the Roadhouse or in the Double R Diner, and how it really forced you to go back and reinterpret everything. And there's all this talk of like alternate timelines or alternate dimensions happening concurrently. I'm not really sure how much of a basis there is for the idea that take it that far. But it's a like devastatingly complex work, and it's I think it absolutely accomplishes everything. David Lynch and Mark Frost have definitely painted their full picture, I think, which they had never been able to do in the original series and in the film. I mean, for at first view, it seems incomplete, but when you go back and forth and analyze things and put pieces together, nothing's going to fit completely, but there's kind of no end to the interpretations or depth that you can get into things.
Let me drop this bit of David Lynch stuff on you.
Mm-hmm.
So we rented some films, and my wife had never seen Dune, David Lynch's Dune, and I had never seen The Elephant Man. So we watched The Elephant Man, and then we watched Dune. And the closing shot, and he made The Elephant Man, and he made The Elephant Man, and then he made Dune, and then he made Blue Velvet. So the closing shot of The Elephant Man matches the opening shot of Dune. And the closing shot of Dune matches the opening shot of Blue Velvet. And the closing shot, I'm just putting this out here, guys. He matches his shots from one project to the next. He's playing a long game.
He is.
That's what I'm saying here. He's playing a long game.
There's stuff in the new Twin Peaks series that ties directly into Mulholland Drive thematically.
Yeah.
There are even convincing arguments that they're in the same universe, but with David Lynch, that's kind of not even important.
Could be. Laura Dern delivers again an amazing performance.
Oh, she's so good.
She's terrific in this, and I'm really looking forward because 2 weeks we get to go see her in Star Wars, right? So
yes,
looking forward to that.
Yeah,
she's great. Kyle MacLachlan is terrific. He's absolutely frightening as Dark Coop or whatever you want to call him. I don't know.
Mr. C is the term they fell on.
So back in the 70s, Karen Black was in this made-for-TV movie called Trilogy of Terror, in which she's menaced by this horrifying little voodoo doll that comes to life, right? So Dark Coop looks like that voodoo doll. He's got this horrifying pinched face. He's got a lot of black hair. He's a lot of teeth, and he's really deadly. So I really enjoyed that. I every time he's on screen, even as Dougie. I don't know how many Americans in Alabama are going to be listening to this podcast, but if you're in Alabama, I want you to go out in December and vote for Doug Jones. Give Dougie your vote, because Dougie needs your vote. Thank you. This has been a paid political broadcast.
Probably not many people, but I heartily endorse that message.
That's one of the few good things about 2017 is that we have a political candidate named Doug Jones. Just like Twin Peaks.
Geoff, I think we should probably move on to your picks. Would you like to begin?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I've watched a little bit more anime over the last year than you guys have, because I have to watch everything. And I'm not, that's not like a brag. That is a curse that I must deal with. So there's gonna be anime on this list, unsurprisingly. But I'd like to start with feature film. That really hit me. I'm going to do one anime, one game, one feature film, just to balance things out. And part of me wants to talk about Baby Driver, because I think that it's just like the most perfect editing job that Edgar Wright has ever done. And it's just an amazing movie, and I highly recommend anybody who hasn't seen Baby Driver watch Baby Driver right now. But the movie that most affected me this year, coming from a place of longtime fandom and just deep respect for a character who has finally gotten their due in cinema for the first time in over a decade, Spider-Man: Homecoming was everything that I hoped it would be and more. If you're a Spider-Man fan, you have seen your favorite character get brutalized by Hollywood ever since roughly Spider-Man 3. Sam Raimi tried to protect him from the Sony machine, but they just had to get Venom in there and had to ruin that whole movie. And then, of course, Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2 are about as far from amazing as you can get, to the point that they even get Spider-Man's motivation completely wrong. Making Spider-Man's whole motivation about getting revenge for Uncle Ben completely undercuts the fact that he immediately finds the guy who killed his uncle and then realizes it's his fault. It's all about guilt. I don't know. Spider-Man on film has been bad for a really long time, and to come back and just have like a Spider-Man who is motivated by a desire to do more for everyone around him, even when he's not necessarily capable of actually helping and may in fact only make things worse, to have a Spider-Man who, instead of being snarky because he's like a cool hip teenager, is snarky because he's like scared shitless of the people he's dealing with and is trying to like mask that with sardonic humor. Having a Spider-Man movie that's just like well filmed and feels like a teenage coming of age story, which is what Spider-Man originally was, while still being like a good superhero movie with good action and good plot twists. I was just really satisfied with it across the board as a Spider-Man fan and also as a film goer. And I mean, like, obviously Marvel is dominating the film discussion and like the film industry right now. And I really like Thor as well. Guardians of the Galaxy I thought was pretty good.
I was surprised at how good Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2 was. I was expecting like 2 hours of annoying quipping, but it was. I thought it was one of the best MCU movies. It was really well executed. Yeah.
See, I was kind of underwhelmed by Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt it was 2 hours of quips, basically.
Oh, okay. Maybe my quip expectations were in a different place than yours, perhaps.
No, I will say the Spider-Man film, if you want to talk about a film that really gets what it's like to be in high school, that film gets it. That is what it's like to be in high school.
Yeah, no, it like perfectly... I mean, obviously it's cribbing a lot from like... indie darling movies of the last decade, like anything written by Diablo Cody. You know what I'm talking about, the Juno knockoffs that have been coming out since Juno.
I know what you mean. I mean that's kind of vaguely what they've been going for. I mean that's why they tapped Mark Webb to direct the Amazing films. But
he did a bad, like, the thing is that they tapped Mark Webb to do that, and they didn't tell him to do that, so he ended up doing a very, very poor man's knockoff of Iron Man. Whereas with this, they've actually, like, nailed that style. What I really like about the MCU in general is that they're really good at understanding that superhero isn't a genre in itself. It's an umbrella of a certain type of character as the protagonist of many different genres. So Ant-Man is a competent heist film with a shitty villain, but you know, like Ant-Man but yellow is not a great memorable villain. But on the other hand, like Thor, especially Thor Ragnarok, but Thor 1 captured it, Thor 2 kind of lost it a little. Thor is like one of those 80s hero from another world comes to Earth fantasy movie. And then Thor Ragnarok is hero travels this fantasy realm movie. Guardians of the Galaxy is like a road trip mixed with like a Star Wars style space opera, but with like, you know, a bit of humor. And then Iron Man is sort of like a very, very light war drama. Like, all of them bring in different aspects of different genres while making it feel like a cohesive universe. And in this case, the genre just happens to be kitschy team film. And there's some really good cuts and edits that would not feel out of place in an art house film. There's some that feel like, you know, generic shot, reverse shot, make a movie as fast as possible filmmaking. But it just feels Spider-Man in a way that Amazing didn't, and that the Sam Raimi films, while they did feel Spider-Man, they felt 60s Spider-Man. They felt like the TV show Spider-Man. And that's cool. That is like a fun and exciting thing, but it's really nice to have like ultimate era teenage Peter Parker in a movie, because that's my favorite version of the character, is the Ultimate Spider-Man universe. Just having that character exist on film and be everything that I wanted him to be, but with a hotter aunt.
Well, you know, Marissa Tomei, it's Oscar bait, right? I mean, you know, got a good track record.
It's bait for a lot of things, man.
I did want to chime in. I just want to say I am eternally sour over the cancellation of the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon back in 2009, and for that reason, I still have never watched any Spider-Man production since then. I've basically washed my hands of Spider-Man. I never actually watched the Amazing films, and
I tried to watch those.
Everything that I have heard about Spider-Man: Homecoming, and everything I've seen from the portrayal of Peter Parker because I did see Captain America: Civil War. They seem to have nailed the character, and I quite admire a number of touches they put on to sort of modernize what Lee and Ditko were trying to do with the character back in the 1960s, in a way that I think is probably a little more relatable now. They certainly have nailed all the essential parts of the character from everything I've gathered. I still can't bring myself to watch it just because.
No, you should watch it.
I'm so bitter. I'm so bitter.
Listen, it's first off, it's a film that New York is a character front and center, and I have a real soft spot for taking the train to Queens or whatever, because I love that stuff. It nails the high school stuff. Michael Keaton is great. Guy playing Spider-Man, whose name I cannot recall, he's great. Tom Holland. He's terrific. He's really good. A little too ripped, but he's really good. He's super ripped. These guys, they're all gym rats now. Anyway, everybody in the film is good. My only quibble with it was that it's a little long. It needed, I don't know what you're going to take out of it, because there's a lot happening in that film, but it is a little long. But I did, I feel like maybe there's a Washington, D.C. thing that didn't, I don't know where that I know it's got to happen, but, I don't know. I'm not a film guy, but I'm not a technician. But I did enjoy it. What I liked about it, and this is what I don't want to spoil anything here, but he fights the guy, and this is a Marvel film, so bad guys generally they die. Like, there's not a lot of repeating villains in these films, because bad things happen to the villains. It's not like Doctor Doom going to come back here, but he goes out of his way. He's like, no, I'm going to save this guy, because they get the idea that these are superheroes who have to do heroic things. They can't just, I'm big and strong, that makes me a superhero. No. What makes you a hero, if I may go back to One Punch Man, speaking of anime, is you risk yourself for others. You do heroic things. And that's what being a hero is. Yeah. Like Moomin Rider in One Punch Man. He's got no superpowers, but he's out there helping people, risking his life to help people.
Yeah. Saitama is risking something,
He is risking, yeah. But he has to work hard to find that risk. But I did enjoy Spider-Man. Did like it.
I do think that Spider-Man is a lot works better when he's disconnected from the greater Marvel universe.
He can come in, he should come in every once in a while, but then he's got to be off doing his own thing.
I agree that he's at his best when he's dealing with small problem in Queens, which is what this movie was, as opposed to when he's trying to save the world, which is kind of what Spider-Man 3 got into, definitely what the Amazing Spider-Man movies got into, is just like the whole of New York is gonna turn into lizards.
I checked out of that film when they went to the secret underground laboratory, and I'm just like, no, turned it off. Watch something else.
The extent of what I think a Spider-Man existential threat in his own movie should be is Doc Ock is about to accidentally nuke downtown New York. Not Doc Ock's. If Doc Ock's reactor was going to wipe out half of the eastern seaboard, at that point you call the fucking Avenger, right? Which is
it's got to be a New York size problem. It's not a eastern seaboard size problem. It is a New York problem.
And I do think that Marvel has gotten a lot better at segmenting what villains are threatening what in their films. Like at the beginning, I don't think that there was a real measurable difference in the threat that Loki posed in the Avengers, aside from bringing in the aliens, versus Loki just on his own as a villain in Thor. The villains were kind of meh across the board, but I think that as the plots have moved forward and they've started being Ant-Man's villain was sucky, but Ant-Man's conflict being mostly about this guy who doesn't want to be a criminal and doesn't want to steal things anymore, having to break into a place and steal some stuff, is personal and interesting. The Guardians of the Galaxy thing, while both times they have fought like an existential threat to the universe, it's been so far away from the Avengers that the Avengers couldn't come in to help. And then Doctor Strange goes off to like another plane of existence to fight an elder god that none of the Avengers really have any concept of. So like they haven't used up their Thanos tier threats on.
I feel like you need to keep that kind of stuff really separate from each other, because once you try to stick it all together, none of it makes sense. Mm-hmm. Just let Doctor Strange fight Dormammu off in, I forget the name of whatever plane of existence that is. And that's a thing he does. That's what he does. You know, Spider-Man is, and I'll age myself here, but back in the 70s, they released some novels of Spider-Man, or Marvel superhero novels. And there's the Spider-Man novel. He is sneaking into some sort of a secret meeting of a bunch of executives. And it turns out they're oil company executives who are being blackmailed. And Spider-Man is thinking to himself, what do I care about these guys? I don't even have a car. Let them get screwed. I don't care. I'm a New Yorker. Mm-hmm. They probably deserve to get ripped off. You know, they're oil companies. And then it turns out it's Dr. Octopus. But you know, that's his attitude. Is I live in New York. I don't have a car. This is somebody else's problem.
Looking at Spider-Man as part of the MCU, the thing is that the scale of at which that character is supposed to work and his villains are supposed to work, it's really more suitable for one of those Netflix shows that they deal with more of the street level crime. But the problem is that Spider-Man is like, he requires too high of a budget and is has a notoriety that's far too high to be confined to that, at least with the way that the Marvel's approaching things and with movies and TV shows right now. So he has to get dragged into all this intergalactic stuff that's going to be happening in upcoming movies, and that makes me a little skeptical of where they're going to take that character moving forward, because if he's going to be in like Infinity War, I mean, how do you go back to, you know, just having him have a interpersonal conflict with Norman Osborn or something like that?
Well, that
just,
will be
it's harder to swallow. Yeah,
because that's a thing that they have to tackle as a group. And then it comes back to a thing that he can take care of alone.
I'll tell you what they'll do. They're going to wipe his memory, and he'll have no memory of it.
I think that just they have to bring the Avengers together to deal with this is enough to create that separation, compared to the DCU, where really, is there a fundamental difference in power level and threat posed by Ares compared to the threat posed by Steppenwolf?
Look, that's a question for the software engineers.
Yeah. Also worth noting, like, Spider-Man should never be an Avenger, because the Avengers are supposed to be the characters whose comics would not sell individually, so they had to put them together in one group.
That's why.
Yeah.
But now I don't know. Anyway, I want to move on from Spider-Man, because I got a couple more things.
Yeah.
My second media of 2016 is not necessarily a media, but a platform, which is the Nintendo Switch.
Hey, I just got one of those.
I think that the ability to jump into TV and handheld is so nice. The ability to take like a console quality platformer like Mario Odyssey, or adventure game like Zelda, or now RPG like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on the go with me wherever I go is so refreshing and so nice that it's just amazing. The ability to take Mario Odyssey into the bathroom with me when I go to poop is just, it's life-changing. But like, in addition to that, it feels like Nintendo's finally like figured out their design identity, which had kind of been fluctuating in the Wii and Wii U era. And now they've figured out that people people come to Nintendo for mechanically deep games that are accessible if you're just like a kid and you just want to have fun with like a colorful cartoony thing for a while, and rich and challenging enough that if you really want to push yourself, you can have one of the toughest gaming challenges of your life with like a few frame perfect inputs that would not be out of place in like a speed run going in towards 100% completion. And there's just, I've 100%ed 2 Nintendo games this year, and I don't 100% video games at all, like ever, but just the way that challenges scale somewhat in Zelda. Zelda's a little flawed in that respect, and I'm never ever going to get all the Korok seeds. But the way that say the challenge up to fighting a Lionel scales is really, really entertaining. And on the flip side, the way that Mario scales up from being like easier than Mario 64 to harder than a Mario 64 speedrun towards the end of its endgame content is really satisfying and engaging, and I'm never left feeling in these Nintendo games like I've seen enough of the game to be like, yeah, I get it, I can put it down. And that's really impressive. So just on the software front and the hardware front, I think they've been nailing it. And I think that it's going to be like a real shakeup to the way we play video games and the way the industry operates that we haven't had since the Wii.
The way you're describing this, it sounds to me like the way we try to describe sort of a Studio Ghibli film, in that it can be enjoyed by children and it's deep enough to be enjoyed by adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just like that, but on an executional level, as opposed to a narrative level. Yeah. Although I haven't gotten into Xenoblade Chronicles 2 yet, but just based on all of the past Xeno games, I fully expect that will be a very enjoyable JRPG for someone who doesn't want to think about it, and a very, very deep dive into Nietzschean philosophy for somebody who does.
And apparently,
that's what they always are.
And apparently lots of anime titties, too.
Everybody loves anime titties.
Yeah.
And on that note, my third piece of media...
That's a good segue.
That is a good segment. Yeah. My third piece of media for the year is Eromanga Sensei. No. I wish I had I wish I cared enough to make that the top pick. No. My thing that really grabbed me this year. I always find at least one anime a year, usually 2 to 3, because there's so many these days, that just like grabs me and really speaks to me. Last year it was Mob Psycho 100 and Rakugo. This year Rakugo is definitely hitting that, and Made in Abyss. But the most profound anime that I've watched so far this year is something called Recreators. I don't know if either of you have like seen it.
Yeah, I followed the show.
Okay.
To the end. I watched the whole thing.
It's an Anime Strike property, which makes it a little harder for some people to watch.
It's an Amazon Prime property in Canada, though.
Yeah, so, only Amazon Prime in Canada. You're right.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like a reverse take on the isekai genre. Is like the basic pitch, which is characters coming from another world to ours. Another basic pitch would be it's Fate. It is a Fate-style battle royale series, but instead of historical figures, it's fictional characters from popular anime, manga, and video games within that world. But the thing is that it's not really a battle royale series at all. It's actually like a very involved and personal rumination on what it means to create, what it means to consume art, and on like a broader level, the challenges of grappling with the knowledge that, from the creation's perspective, that your god is either dead or just a man, and that your life really has no grand purpose behind it. So it ends up being like there's 3 levels to it. On one level, it's a fun action romp that's maybe a little too heavy on talking and light on action for some people's tastes. Although when the action comes, it's super high budget and fun. On like a secondary level, it's about like what it means to make art and why we do it, and the challenges that go into that. Which is reflected in one of my favorite introductions to a character ever, which is the main character comes home, sits down at his computer, opens up Photoshop with his tablet, then goes over to Pixiv for a little, browses for a bit to get inspiration, comes back to Photoshop, stares at it for another 10 minutes, puts it down, and watches anime. Which is like the
little too painfully true.
It's creative ennui on film, perfectly captured. But then on like this third, deeper level, it's really like a very intricate debate between different positions on nihilism. I'm working on a video about this right now. But like the main villain is basically a Joker style, or not even Joker, just like an absolute nihilist and an absolute negative and destructive nihilist, in that they believe that there is no worth in the world, and that because people suffer, it just makes more sense to destroy everything. The sort of intermediary villain is a hedonist, like the Joker, who's just like, I'm going to do whatever I want to entertain myself because nothing matters. And then on the flip side, the heroes are all about the idea of, well, nothing has any inherent meaning or value, so let us create something of our own and find our own meaning and value in life. And it's like all of these different positions sort of combating each other, and being whittled down one by one in order to prove the validity of one, sort of like a Socratic dialogue with more explosions.
This is like a 12-pack of beer in the dorms at a college, junior dorms at a college, about 1 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of conversation that you have.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, the show reminded me, like, just in the way that it engages with the creative process, it reminded me a lot of 8.5, which is, you know, I always really admired that movie for the way that it dealt with the subject matter. Of course, this does it in an entirely different way. And I know this is kind of the bargain bin criticism, but man, I don't have any problem with the way the story unfolded, or the themes unfolded in the series, but man, like, they could have done it with about 1/3 the exposition. I mean, I like Meteora and everything, but it really seemed they were leaning a little too hard on, hey, this is the exposition character from a game. Wouldn't it be funny if she delivered all this exposition to this show we're doing, which is, you know, totally not a thing you'd see in any other anime.
Well, I mean, I do know that a lot of people are like, they don't like Meteora. And that's like a common thing I've heard, because I've been championing this show online for a while.
They fall back on her too much. She is a crutch. At times, at least.
I don't see what she's doing as exposition is the thing, because she's never like filling you in on backstory details.
No.
All of like the relevant backstory is delivered through showing and storytelling. It's just like her role. And a lot of the other characters' ultimate role is to, like, discuss the concepts of the show and to, like, figure out the exact metaphysical mechanics behind these characters coming to life. I don't think that's exposition, because a lot of the show is about exploring and experimenting with different possibilities to find answers.
Yeah. It didn't bother me when it's used in that dimension, but it always bothered me when they used it to supplement action that was actually going on at the time of or when they were giving additional description to what you could already see going on screen. I felt there were a lot of sequences, especially near the end, that could have been conveyed almost entirely through visuals, but it had a lot of exposition or rather description and talking that really kind of dragged it down for me. Or maybe that's more of a pacing issue.
Yeah, I mean, I can I can understand the perspective, or that perspective. It did not bother me at all.
Yeah.
But then I'm somebody who, like, really, really enjoys it when the Major and Bato take a 5-minute break to just, like, sit down and, like, be like, well, what if this means this? And actually a standalone complex is above. And just, like, talking about the meaning and ideas behind what's happening in the story. I really like that in Ghost in the Shell, because I don't know, it allows for just a more intricate discussion of what's going on. And I also think that specifically with the philosophical underpinnings of the show, there is enough going on with it that is not said at all, that is just, like, demonstrated through how characters interact with each other and how conflicts are resolved and everything, that's not explicitly said, that I don't think you can accuse the show of telling rather than showing. I just think that it is so information dense that it can feel like they're talking too much. But, like, having watched through it 1.5 times now, I don't know. It doesn't bother me that way, and I actually like the way it's executed.
Well, I mean, I still love the series a lot. I'd probably watch it again, even. But I don't know, it's not that they were telling rather than showing, but I just felt there was a lot of simultaneous showing and telling. I don't know. I'm being kind of nitpicky here, honestly. I love the show.
Yeah. That's. I mean, it's fair. I know there's people who really dislike it because of that, and I'm not like. I might be a little bit defensive because I was really, really pushing for this show, and people gave me a lot of blowback for that. But like, there's just something about it that is really incredible to me, which is that it's like a super deeply personal take on creativity from Ray Hiroe, who's the writer of that show and also Black Lagoon. And
yeah, he clearly has some hang-ups about, writing Black Lagoon.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really personal stuff that he and Aoki, the director, put into it. I also think it's like Hiroyuki Sawano's best soundtrack ever, which is, a lot of competition for that. But it's real good, and I don't know. It just speaks to me on a lot of levels.
Yeah, that's what you want, I think. You know,
I definitely. Sorry. Yeah, Recreator is definitely one of the best anime TV shows of the year. I wholeheartedly agree with that pick.
I appreciate the vote of confidence. But yeah, I just if nothing else, maybe I like the show too much just because it's like it hits on a bunch of stuff that like resonates with me. But I don't know. It's one of the smartest and most dense to unpack TV shows I've seen in a while. And it's a guy who analyzes anime for a living. Obviously, that's something I really enjoy.
And you don't see that very often with anime original shows that don't have any prior source material that they're drawing from.
Yeah, the last one that like I can think of that hit that kind of like density and personal level of personal expression would be like Anohana, and then you got to go back to Evangelion it's very rare. Yeah. It's very rare.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just wrap up with my picks, and I won't take too long with them unless you guys have a lot to intervene on my weird choices. We already covered Twin Peaks, which is my first one. The second pick I wanted to give, it's a pretty obscure show. It's called the Neddeaus of Duqesne Island. I don't know if either of you have heard of it. It's a short CBC series. It was created by and starring Aaron Schroeder, who I had never heard of before looking into this, and I didn't even know who he was till the very end, because you don't actually get a real credit roll until the final episode. They just have weird pseudonyms that the staff uses up until that point. It's a mockumentary series. It's about 10 episodes long. Each episode is about 5 to 10 minutes. And with stunning accuracy, it is made to look like a CBC television documentary from the 1970s. It reminded me a lot of Look Around You. I don't know if you guys have seen Look Around You. The Peter Serafinowicz BBC series from about 10 years ago that parodied old British educational programming. It's not quite on the level of surrealism that you saw in that show, but it follows a similar kind of approach.
So if as somebody who grew up on National Film Board stuff and Hinterland Who's Who and stuff like that, is this going to appeal to me?
But it is bullseye. Right. It is a perfect bullseye into that kind of material. It focuses on a family that lives on a small island that is more or less isolated from modern society, and they have a lot of bizarre obsessions and rituals surrounding potatoes. They play a really strange homemade board game called Rumbiggersman. They have like impenetrable accents. There's a lot of the best jokes because if you you can watch the show either on the CBC app or watchcbc.com. They're also on YouTube, but I recommend the CBC app version because they actually subtitle all the dialogue. The YouTube version does not have those subtitles, and one, you need that to understand what they're saying a lot of the time, and two, they have a lot of fun with it. Like there's some sequences where they just arbitrarily choose to designate some dialogue as being unintelligible. It's just funny to see that pop up at certain parts, because like, can you really not tell what they were saying any better any more in that part than you could in this part? And also the show features two actresses in their 30s who are playing these twins, who I'm pretty sure are actually supposed to be about 9 years old. So it's a lot of stuff like that. And the fact that CBC produced this hilarious retro-themed, very postmodern, subversive mockumentary series, and it completely flew under my radar when it first came out in early June, I think speaks very poorly for their attempts to actually promote it and get it out there. And I think a big reason for that was because they chose to release this series under their online CBC comedy brand. I don't know if you guys have seen a lot of the CBC comedy stuff pop up on social media, but I tend to instinctively ignore it. And I think a lot of other people do as well, because usually they're trying to like riff on or do the same kind of shtick as the Onion or the Beaverton, but they do it very, very badly. And it's definitely questionable that, a public broadcaster would even need to have a component like that. But they released the series mainly under that banner. And I didn't even bother to check it out until a friend of mine pointed it out to me. And he said, this is like you gotta see this. This is the weirdest shit CBC has made this year. And I can confirm that it is. And the best part about this is that they actually managed to dupe a bunch of Redditors on r/documentary into thinking that it was an actual documentary.
Sweet.
Yeah, there's a whole. I'll post a link to the thread. It's really funny. Colin Mockery actually does the narration of it. He's actually the only name that you see accurately credited in every episode. Everyone else is a pseudonym. But a lot of the people, they're actually bought into the idea that he did the narration for this when he was 16, even though he's clearly doing a very old man voice when he's doing it. And just the fact that they bought into it just really reminds me of when I like to tell people that things like how Tales from North Hills High and Ursula's Kiss aired on YTV back in the late 90s. Because just for a split second, it's like, hey, maybe they'll think that that's true, and sometimes they do. But yeah, I highly recommend that show. I think that it is evidence that CBC really can make this great subversive, Adult Swim or Channel 4 style programming. I really like to see them doing more of this stuff, but they can make it, but they just can't execute or
it's hard.
Or
yeah,
sell
it's hard
it
to
properly.
Convince. Yeah,
they don't have a proper platform for it. They need to figure that out. And I hope...
it sounds reminiscent of the IFC show Documentary Now.
Yeah, it is.
I enjoyed the living shit out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, that was so good.
I will say that there's like nothing there. If there's one thing you can say for almost any of the public broadcasters, it's that when they do get around to parodying themselves, there's nobody better at doing it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Oh yeah.
Is the most perfect send up of everything, both wrong and right, with Channel 4 and the BBC.
When you brought up pseudonyms, I was thinking, well, obviously this is going to be something like Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Yeah. It's in that same category for sure.
By the way, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, and you have any love for like Richard Ayoade, if you've seen like his more recent stuff, like Thor. I am swapping out somebody else. So the guy who did
well, he was in the IT
crowd, and for a second there, my brain was like switching him out with the guy who directed Thor Ragnarok and is also part of the Flight of the Conchords guys.
Yeah,
but yeah, Richard Ayoade, like his stuff on IT Crowd and his other like recent things. He's just such a fantastic actor and a fantastic director. And if you enjoyed him in Neo Yokio, you are going to love the ever-loving hell out of Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Oh yeah, 100%. So yeah, what's the name of this Canadian thing, by the way?
It's called the Neddeaus of Duqesne Island. You will not understand the spelling based on the way it's pronounced. I'll write it out and post you a link later, and you can check it out. But it's good stuff. So just to quickly wrap it up, my third pick is a movie that actually got a fair bit of buzz, or at least a lot of advertising early in the year, or it got a lot of publicity. But after it came out, not a lot of people were talking about it, and I don't think it's been getting the amount of attention that it deserved. It's called Colossal. It was a movie directed by Nacho Vigalondo. He directed the second VHS movie and the A segment in the first ABCs of Death. So he's mostly specializes in horror. The less you know about this movie going in, the better. But chances are you've heard of it. It's that Anne Hathaway kaiju film, going back to kaiju from earlier in the show. Did either of you guys hear of this movie at all?
Yeah. I saw the trailer and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pretty under the radar when it came out, despite getting a fair bit of publicity. So basically, Anne Hathaway plays a woman struggling with alcoholism, and she loses her job. She moves back to her small hometown. She tries to reforge social connections and struggles to get back on her feet. And while doing so, she discovers that she has become somehow psychically linked to a giant monster that is attacking Seoul, Korea. I won't say much more about the plot because you really want to discover the true depth of this movie as you watch it, for sure. I was excited to see the movie because I'm a fan of Anne Hathaway and of giant monsters, so combining them together seemed like an easy sell to me. And I was worried that the premise of this film wasn't going to be enough to sustain it for a whole feature-length story. And I was very wrong. It goes to places. Well, it shows a great amount of creativity in the way it executes the basic concept, and it also goes to places you really don't expect it to. And it has all the makings of a really, truly great dark comedy, and it goes much darker than I think anybody would expect it to as well. And I gotta show you, it is much darker and more scathing than you might expect. But it's still very much a comedy, and it stays grounded in that, and that's how it succeeds the best. But I should point out that 2 years ago, Anne Hathaway mentioned that her next major project was going to explore toxic masculinity and the danger of negative male energy as an influence in careers and social life and everything like that. And I was shocked to discover that while watching the movie that this is the project she was talking about. Those themes,
okay.
Yeah. I guess that's a little bit of a spoiler right now, but those themes emerge. You don't see them coming, but it's done in a really gripping way, and also the ending of this film is perfect, even if it kind of loses you after a certain point. Everything, the ending is so incredibly satisfying with the way everything comes together and kind of gets flipped around. I have a difficult time imagining anybody being disappointed with the note it ends on. Also, Jason Sudeikis is in the film. He plays another major character, and I won't spoil his role, but he is part of the big shocking surprise in this film, and he does a really great job. I won't say much more, but I don't think this film has been getting enough attention. I think that if more people, I don't know if a lot of people went to see it or if it's just because it went against their expectations so hard.
The trailers made it seem to be a comedy, about Anne Hathaway controlling a giant monster. Yeah. It's a comedy.
Yeah,
and
it is a comedy, but
I think people don't have the faith, and I'm one of those people. They don't have the faith that this can be, you can get a solid comedy film out of this premise.
Yeah,
and you're telling me that they do, so that's
they do.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
It was my big reservation, and
maybe the trailer needs to say, "We swear to God, this is funny."
The impression that I kind of got from it was like that it wouldn't be that funny, and that it'd just be like an artsy fartsy take on alcoholism. So I am glad. I'm more excited about it now hearing you talk about it than I was seeing the trailers, because they just made it look boring.
They should have you cut those trailers.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that you like I mentioned, you can't reveal too much about this film without kind of spoiling it. I'm kind of glad. I'm glad the trailers held back to the degree that they did. But at the same time, as you confirmed, they kind of needed a little more, I think, to get people to maybe spark interest in people, and they did not succeed in doing that. Nonetheless, the movie is on Netflix in Canada now because it's Mongrel Media. Yeah. So anybody, you can go watch it, because I'm assuming you all have Netflix. And I highly recommend that you do. I think it might not work perfectly for everyone, but I think if any of the aspects of these films even remotely intrigue you, you'll probably get something out of it for sure, and you might even get a little more out of it than you'd expect.
I guess the real question is, we all know it's Anne Hathaway in a film, so she has to cry. How much does she cry in this film?
She has cried more in films than in this, but
so we're at like a medium, light to medium cry level.
I'd put it on a 7.5 on the Anne Hathaway crying scale. Okay, so that's everything I've got. Before we wrap up, did you guys have any fun plans for the holidays?
I'm going to drive down to Atlanta, Georgia, and reenact Baby Driver.
Ooh.
No, actually, I'm from it. I haven't actually seen Baby Driver, but everyone's like, Dave, you got to see it. You're from Atlanta, you got to see it. So I intend to, and I did fully intend to see Baby Driver. Then this whole Kevin Spacey thing came out, and I got a little.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad I saw the movie before that came out. But
I feel it's going to color every time I see that guy in anything. It's going to color my enjoyment of his work.
It makes me wish I hadn't put off seeing L.A. Confidential for so long.
Yeah. I just feel like with everything that's happening in the world right now, it's just gotten to a point where you've either got to like give up on watching a bunch of good films forever, or just
I've said
get
that
a little comfortable with being uncomfortable.
I've been saying you got to judge the stuff on a case-by-case basis.
Exactly.
But right now, the caseload is huge, and working through these cases is taking a while. That's all I'm saying.
I'm of the philosophy that like you hate the jerk, not the work. But I mean, it gets hard when like when somebody puts a lot of themselves into something. It can get hard to separate it.
Yeah.
You know?
Again, it's a case by case kind of thing. You gotta kind of evaluate each work on its own merits, which means you have to watch them to make that evaluation a lot of the time. Except with Woody, except it was like if it's like a Woody Allen film, I think you kind of know what you're getting most of the time. But,
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, Geoff, any plans for you?
My plans are basically to have a quiet Christmas with my family right now, and make a whole bunch of YouTube videos before then because I need to. Such is life.
I am hoping to make a stollen this year. I do a lot of Christmas baking. I haven't made a stollen yet. Usually the big obstacle is that you have to bake them, and then you have to let them sit for 2 weeks. So you really need to be on top of things, and I probably, once again, not as on top of things enough to do that properly. But I'm going to give it a shot.
You've got like 3.5 weeks before Christmas, so you
got but I have parties before that I need to prepare for. So I may have missed the boat on some of those. But
you might have to find your neighborhood stolen dealer.
Purchase a stolen. I know where to get a stolen.
Okay. But you want to make one.
I want to make one, yeah. I want to tell people I made a stollen. Yeah.
It's like cooking your own souffle, you know?
Yeah.
You do it in part to do it.
It's the experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's an experiential thing. I don't think we're going to make some cookies, I think. There's a thing happening next week I think we're going to bring cookies to. So I guess I got to make some cookies. But that's about the extent of my baking.
I can send you my pfeffernusse recipe.
Oh, well.
Yeah. All right, well, I think that wraps us up. So thanks so much for coming on, guys. Where can people find you on social media and whatnot?
I am Terreby Funhouse on Twitter, and that's TEREBEFUNHOUSE on Twitter, like Terreby, like Japanese for television, Funhouse, like Funhouse, etc., etc. And you can find me at MrKitty.org or at letsanime.blogspot.com.
And I am G0FF Thew on Twitter, so G0FFTHEW or Geoff Thew is what I go by on Twitter. And then on YouTube, you can find me at youtube.com/mothersbasement, or you can find my podcast, The Weebcast, at youtube.com/basementscape. And you know, if you don't want to see me on there, I guess you can check out my Discord. There's links to that on my YouTube videos. I'm lots of places. I am everywhere on this internet.
That's how you have to do it these days. You got to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning in to our Zon and Canada Christmas special. You can reach me on Twitter at jbetteridge or email zonandcanada@gmail.com. Our theme song is by Ultraclystron and can be found on his album Packet Flood. You can find that at ultraclystron.com. Please subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play Music, or your podcast app of choice. And if you could leave a rating or review, that'd be really great. If you know anyone who might like this show, please recommend it to them. So until next time, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I'll see you again.
See you on the flippity flop, kids.
Peace out, dudes.